Good evening, Anjali. Welcome to the Global Women Economic Forum 2021. Uh, it is my privilege to give a brief introduction about you, which is as brief as saying you're the managing director of Deutsche Bank. Welcome, and I will hand it over to you to deliver your keynote speech. Uh, Welcome once again.
Thanks so much, Sandhya. We have a very broad topic today, which is the digital disruption of financial services. And it's tough to cover that in 10 minutes, but I'm going to try and just give a synopsis of everything that's going on. As we know, we have been, going through in the past few years, the fourth digital revolution, as it's being called, or the fourth industrial revolution, which is the digital revolution. And that has been disrupting, life in across all sectors. But I think the financial sector has been the object of many innovations in recent years, and it's had a very significant impact on consumers and on regulation. I can start with a very simple example of, opening a bank account. So if you'd asked our parents or even us, say about 10 years ago, how do you open a bank account? We would have, told you how we research which are the good retail banks. We go to a bank near our area and you do a lot of physical paperwork exchange. You carry your documents and you do it over the counter over there. You open your bank account, or that's how it gets initiated. Now, if you ask a millennial or a Generation Z person, how would you open a bank account? You might get a very different answer because they are going to want to, do as much as possible online through their mobile or through their computer or whatever device they use to connect. So retail banking is no longer, branch banking, but is conducted in many different ways, including using mobile phone. And that is a very, very typical and very common example of how digital intervention has disrupted financial services. So banks have had to adopt their business models to deal with persistently, low interest rates, consumer behavior that has demanded straight through processing, consumers that want to be able to do everything online. Mobility has been a large part of that disruption because now for the Generation Z, the mobile is almost an extension of their hand, and they do want to conduct everything on it. So digital disruption is changing the provision of services in this sector, but it's also probably solving some of the previous competition problems in financial markets. So traditional banks today have more than just other banks as their competitors. Um, just a minute. In the sphere of financial services, there is a large play by fintechs, and we will come to that. There are advantages and disadvantages that most fintech companies face. There are also the big tech companies like Apple and Google and even Amazon that have come into the payment space. So if you think of, today, the amount of players that are there in financial services, forget banking, and in financial services, more so the payments arm that's there. It is the traditional banking, players, it is fintechs, as well as it is big tech companies with very, very demanding consumers. And big techs have great advantage because they can use the data that they've got from clients combined with their leading edge technologies of digital technology, artificial intelligence, and all of that. So if we had asked ourselves a question, say 10 years ago, what are the 10 largest banks by assets? That list would have been comprised of 10 banks primarily based in Europe or the United States. And if you ask yourself that question today, the top 10 are dominated a lot by Asian banks. And the reason for this shift has been not only because of some of the financial crisis and the rise of Asia, but also the digital disruption that has stemmed from increasing competition in retail from financial technology and other companies. The profitability of the entire sector was threatened. Therefore, European and Japanese banks were barely able to cover their cost. And now if you think of the future and say, what are the top 10 financial services companies going to be if we ask this question 10 years from now? What will that list look like? And that list might even have names like Amazon or Google on it, along with a JP Morgan Chase. So banking is undergoing this huge transformation from become being based in physical branches, from being a very, very paper intensive, very manual kind of industry, to an industry that is having to use a lot of information technology, big data, with highly specialized human capital. So even before this transformation had begun, the banks and markets were intertwined, with a high proportion of activities becoming market based. And banks were facing great competition from other intermediaries, increasingly digital, in their core businesses. So all of this is going on. This is the backdrop. And then we had COVID. So if this wasn't enough, we got the biggest pandemic that the world has seen in recent times. And I really hope that in my lifetime, I don't see anything like it. It started in around February, March 2020, and it's disrupted the whole world in ways that one had never imagined. There has been disruption in terms of political, medical, social, financial, aspects of the world, industry, economy. So this kind of disruption, I don't think has ever been seen. It's been called a pandemic from medical point of view, but I think it was like a crisis across all of these areas. And what it did was it accelerated that digital revolution that was already in play. Because for the first time, people had to not go to office, people had to learn to work from home, people had to learn to shop from home, do their banking from home, purchase things from home. So if at all there was anyone who had not yet come onto the digital online platforms of being able to pay for things and manage their financial accounts, I think the COVID crisis has even brought those people, onto the bandwagon. And today it's pretty unheard of that nobody, people don't know how to use their phone to be able to do everything. I have learned so much today. I can order food on my phone. I can order groceries on my phone. I can book tickets on my phone. I can book air tickets on my phone. I can transact, and do all my banking on my phone. So there's been a complete shift to digital. And that's what the last year and a half, or now close to 2 years, has done to everyone. So really, what does this mean? And I'm going to try and keep it short. The digital disruption of banking has promised to lead to a general increase in efficiency and service, and it's helping to overcome information asymmetries. So it's using big data, and it's using artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies, and blockchain. It's actually replacing obsolete technology, because you couldn't live with that anymore. You had to come up to speed. So banks that had legacy systems and platforms, whereby even though the front end had become digital, but at the back it was still clunky old banking systems, almost every bank has gone on a transformation journey to stay abreast with the latest technology and to be able to compete with the big data and fintech companies. They will, constantly face the dilemma of, do we go head to head as we compete with the new entrants, or do we partner, do we collaborate, do we acquire? And with the big tech firms, the challenge posed for the incumbents is even greater, because the main threat here becomes that big tech firms will try to control the consumer interface, because they have the data, they understand the client, so they can act as the gatekeepers to the distribution of financial products. So even if at the back it's actually the bank doing the transaction, but the front interface with the consumer becomes a big tech firm like a Google Pay or Apple Pay. So what the consumer is thinking they're using is Google Pay, even if the payment gateway at the back is really a banking financial services gateway. And therefore, the banks are now also thinking of how to stay connected to their consumer and to stay top of the mind for financial services. So who do you use? I use HDFC instead of saying I use Google Pay, right? So you want to, keep that mindset with your customers as well. And I'll just touch upon, 5 things that are going on in this digital disruption, and then, close, because I think this topic is so vast. We can talk about it for 5 hours and I won't be done.
And we also have a session anyway soon after this
Yeah,
to
yeah.
discuss this. Yes, yes.
And so there's fintech, like I said. Fintech is essentially the convergence of technology and finance. And that results in the emergence of various innovative tech startups. And the biggest technology impact has been on the banking industry. In fact, it's coming from, fintechs which are driving financial institutes to create better consumer, products. And fintechs offer the convenience of real-time transactions. They make mobile banking a reality for very simple transactions because of the, apps that they create and the APIs and the interfaces they have. And so the need to go to physical branches, which is how I started, starts becoming less and less. And the primary advantage held by a fintech over traditional banks and financial companies is the fact that they can use state of the art technology and they use it unilaterally. So they don't have to change big, global banking systems to be able to apply that. The second thing is digital banking. What does digital
I'm
banking mean?
sorry, I will have to interrupt here because
Yeah.
we are going to get cut off. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, we have
All right,
10
sorry.
minutes.
So I'm just going to wrap up. There's digital banking, blockchain, and AI and machine learning. And maybe, separately we will discuss all of these, maybe
In the
more in
next session. Yeah, thank you so much. Very interesting to see how this tectonic shift in digital banking has changed the whole countries
yeah.
working. It is my privilege to announce the Women Economic Forum Award of Leader of the Decade in Innovation being conferred on Ms. Anjali. Thank you so much. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to your session, which you are moderating. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for being here.
Thanks a lot. Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you. Bye.